Why esports? You were successful very early on. When you could have been a lawyer at any firm, and you could have continued to go. You have that personality where you're just going to be successful. Period. End of story. That's just the way people are made. You sell your first company. You didn't make that much. On the second one, you did make money, and then on the third one, that you sold to Apple, you obviously like killed it. Esports.
Yeah. So I love sports. I loved gaming. I wasn't a big gamer, but I played a lot.
So before we get that.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Kings, Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
How did that?
So, all right, now I got a bunch of money, right? I'm working for Apple. Steve passed. Steve passed, and I didn't want to stay, and I wanted to get into stuff. So I bought a minor league baseball team. I love baseball. And minor league baseball was really interesting. I learned a lot about the business of business as opposed to the business of baseball. Minor league baseball, for those of you who don't know, the minor league teams are, for the most part, not owned by the parent franchise. So we were the Modesto Nuts, and we were the high single-A team for the Colorado Rockies out in Modesto, California. We had nothing to do with the players except for housing them. We didn't pay their salaries, coaches, nothing. Everything between the white lines was Colorado Rockies. Everything else was us. So we had a little stadium, we had a video board, we had sponsors, we had events, we had marketing, social media, and I really liked it. I thought that was great. And I said, I want to get into major league sports. And I wanted to buy the Oakland A's. Now, I didn't have enough money to do that myself by any stretch. So I started just networking with people like Mark Masterov, first guy I met, and who's a co-founder at Energy. And he's like, I love basketball, but I'll go down this road.
So Mark Masterov created
24-Hour Fitness.
So he's the genius that said, you know what? All these gyms are sitting at night. People still want to work out at night.
Exactly.
And not only that, but there's a lot of struggling gyms out there. So I could just go into this place and offer people money, rebrand it to that, open it 24/7. And
he figured out the business model. A guy by the name of Shaquille O'Neal called him up when he
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, our buddy here. He called him up out of the blue, looked him up, said, who's the CEO of this? Because I'm in Orlando now. He wanted to work out at night. I don't know why he didn't work out with the Magic or whatever. And he said, there's no gyms open at night here, and I know you do 24-hour fitness in California or something. Can I do gyms with you here? And that's how Mark and Shaq became best buddies. Same with Magic Johnson and Mark. Mark knows everybody. He's an amazing mentor for me, a wonderful guy. And I reached out to him through a contact and talked about, I thought he probably thought it was endearing that I was like, I want to buy the Oakland A's. Like, what do I know, right? And so long story short, the Sacramento Kings came up because Steve Ballmer actually technically bought the Sacramento Kings. He bought them and was going to move them to Seattle. And it ended up being a big fight. And the Sacramento fans are the best in the world. They deserve a franchise. They sell out that place even when the team's been horrible for a long time. They bleed purple. And Commissioner David Stern at the time was a big fan. And he was like, look, we're not going to let this team leave without a fight, but there's got to be a group here to buy from the Maloofs and keep the team if you would build a new stadium. And so we turned our attention there. We brought in some bigger, wealthier people than me, and Mark helped really put it all together, and I was along for the ride. And about 8 of us, major groups, ended up buying the Kings, and we built a beautiful stadium up there at Golden One Center, and the whole downtown area has just been booming. Sacramento's been booming. So really got into sports. That's how I got more time with Mark. Mark and I have kids. He has a lot of big, blonde, beautiful Division I athlete kids, and I have the opposite, nerdy and gamers. But they would all play games together, and it was like the great equalizer, especially my older son, who's hilarious theater kid, tiny, but he would crush everybody in the different games. And I just started watching them and their habits, and Mark and I were like, geez, our kids never watch TV. They don't even watch sports, even though we own a team. Like, they like going, but they don't watch the team. They were watching Twitch. They were watching Soda Poppin', which is funny because he's one of our co-owners. And I started looking at his numbers and the size of his audience. I was like, this is bigger than the Kings, home television audience. So Mark and I were like, let's buy a team. Let's do it ourselves. So we got just the two of us at first. We got a League of Legends team, Energy, League of Legends 4 years ago, the ill-fated Energy years. We actually did pretty well our first split, and then we got relegated to Echo Fox, of all things. How ironic. we learned a ton. And by the time we were doing that, we brought Shaq in, and he was like, "Look, man, you can't live and die on winning and losing, but you've got to build a brand, an infrastructure to be a winner." And so that's what we did. And so we bought a Counter-Strike team, we got a Rocket League team, we kept growing, and around the edges, scraping for every bit of attention, every like, every retweet, and it took a bunch of years until this year where we've had an insane run of winning, from the Shock winning the Overwatch League to all of our Apex championships, all the Fortnite guys, all the money they won, Rocket League, doing their thing and making it to the finals and losing every year. You can go all the way down, all the way down the list. Counter-Strike #1 in the world before, then we sold them. So it's been wonderful. And then you, and then, this with entering Call of Duty in Chicago and the reception of the Green Wall, and we can get to that, and you coming in, but like this year has been a blessing, what a journey from where we were 4 years ago to to where we are now. That's
like super crazy, because as I've obviously lived this thing for the last 10 to 13 years, probably longer. 13 years. I've lived and breathed this thing. So, in the beginning, I hoped that it would get to this. I knew it would get here. I just hoped that what I was hoping would be like the thing. So when people like you started to come into the space, like I got super amped about it. I'm like, man, true businessmen are going to come in here and like revolutionize the way that we think things. And for the most part, it works. And then, obviously like the little twist that as esports people, we have to apply to this because it's a sport on the, in a weird realm called the internet above anything. But what sort of future did you see in it that you're like, what, as a businessman, this makes sense?
Well, I looked at who was watching, just like I did with the advertising companies, like who's using the phone back, who was text messaging, is the kids, right? Teenagers and young adults, and it's no different here. And that's where the buying power is. It's the people who change the world. Those are the people with, the ideas. That's who everybody wants to reach. So I was like, wow, that's quite a cohort of people all doing one thing. And then as I got in there, I learned about all these different communities, which some people think is hard to make a business because, guys who love COD don't necessarily love Overwatch, and the Smash community is very different from the Gears community. So, but I loved it because it was all about gaming. And I hate that everyone lumps everyone together. Esports is not. It's community after community. Yeah. And I love what you were doing. I love what Soda was doing. I love Twitch. I was fascinated by Twitch and YouTube. And I said, this is really a modern day media company eventually, right? This is a content business with gaming, professional gaming as its underpinning, and then it's just evolved, I think, to that, at least for what we're trying to build.
Yeah. So you obviously, from a business perspective, you see it. You see the bright and shiny lights in the future. Because I do. I'm very passionate about this. I consider this my life's work. I'll do this until the day that I'm old and gray. But there are a lot of things out there that say, well, this is just a little bit too much, too soon. Could be, right? But I don't think. I mean, it's for me. It's I don't know if I oversimplify things, but to me, it's more about the common sense of it all, right? When I see Liv, who has never watched a single piece of television ever, and well, maybe like in passing, but never really sits down and does anything besides look at this phone or whatever and just like consume content that way. I see that is something that she's going to be used to forever.
Right.
And I saw this early on when I first started Optic and we were in the loft upstairs in my townhouse. She would go up to the television and try to swipe the television like she did on her iPad. And I'm like, this is something that they're growing up knowing, right? She doesn't know that this is as new as she is to this world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's so weird. Like she'll never know a world where she's gonna have to click a thing to do something. And to me that was like, I'm like, man, there's something here. Everything that she was consuming was being consumed on that. And if you look at sports, traditionally they're consumed on television, at a bar, or at home, and that. Esports has always been the most accessible thing that I've been able to sort of cradle in my hands and be entertained for hours on end. So for me, it was like, okay, there's definitely there. The amount of people that watch whoever on a daily basis is just massive, and there's no way that this doesn't. I mean, if this is his infancy, can you imagine when this is the everyday norm for everybody, not just the small percentage that consumes content now? I'm talking about when all of these young people become adults and they have kids who know nothing but, hey, we're a fan of the Huntsman, we're a fan of energy. who are a fan of the Shock. That's our team because you're
Yeah.
a part of this family.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
I was just in the car right over here, and I got a call from a friend who's involved with a college, and he wanted help in thinking through the gaming club at the college. And it's a small college. I said, how many people are in the gaming club? 400, 2,000 students. There's 4,000. You know, we're the Shock and Energy are the official team of the University of California, Berkeley, where there's, I don't know how many students, 40,000 or something. There's 4,000 in the gaming club. And you think about it, it's like, what was the big club, you know, back when we were like the football booster club or something, you know, the movie club? I don't know. But like, that's what they're doing, right? Like if that's the size of what people want to spend their time with, that's the size of these clubs at school. Of course, you know, all you have to do is go 4 years out for the next 4, you know, years of college students. And you realize that those people are now in the workforce and they're spending money, and these high school students are coming in and, you know, just like my kids, right? They're not watching the Kings play.